Greetings, I'm Sophis. The Weapon Forge is a pretty useful tool, and when given focus can give you very powerful items that change how your heroes play. I have previously done a build that plays with the idea, but with nomads now being added to the roster, it's hard to compete with their ability to move their cities and pick up every magic material on the map. So today's build focuses on that. At the same time, the intent was to make a thematically satisfying faction. It has its strengths, since you will more than likely need to take over territory to get your hands on as many magic material nodes as you can. With the Sandstalker's Tome, you can have desert cities that have greater food output than normal grasslands. Combined with the Storm Giant King, you get pretty fast growth. This helps conqueror nomads by giving you more population to claim provinces, great for claiming magic materials and conquering cities. There's nearly no conflict in the build. Sand terrain stacks with forests and rivers. You only really lose the benefits of one of the special provinces later on, when the build gets to Tome of Paradise. But it is compensated by its secondary benefit of converting food to mana income. Also, desertification seems to remove forests, but you can safely add some later with Create Forest. As far as your units go, with this setup, every farm unit is going to benefit from Gaia's Chosen, Dunestalkers, Steel Skin, Supergrowth, and Leaf Skin. Most, if not all units you field will benefit from Force of Nature. There's no specific unit that I would say stands out more than the others, but your melee is more favored than your ranged with the enchantments you have available. Your melee roster, once you get past the early game, will be by and large shock units and shield units. Shock units like the Champion and the Raider will get Blight Blades, Sundering Blades, Scorpion Venom Blades, and Adaptive Armor. Shield units like the Wind Warrior, the Entwined Protector, and the Sand Scorpion will get the same enchantments, but also benefit from Aspect of the Root and Spell-Tempered Shields. The Sand Scorpions in particular will also benefit from Empowered Beasts. Your ranged units like Strider and Glade Runner will get Poison Arrows, Purging Arrows, and Meteor Projectiles. It may not be much, but still enough to give them a little more damage in combat. You will count on Call Greater Animal to get your hands on anything different than this roster. Out of the other animals you can summon, I would consider the Sandworm one of the more interesting options for this build. Your ruler is pretty much set. If we're talking forging magic items, there's no better than a Giant King. Granted, you can hire one from your Pantheon, but this is much easier and costs far less Imperium. I highly recommend you stick with the Storm Giant to focus on the growth strategy, but it isn't mandatory. The choice of class is also up to you. Given we're going all in on forging, you can assume you'll end up having the best items on hand. As for your heroes, my only recommendation is actually related to their governor type. When you're creating the faction, make a few heroes and set them to agricultural governors. That way, you'll get even more production out of every farm province. Now let's go over society and form traits. We're playing with Nomad Conquerors. To focus on the item forge, we'll go with Reclaimers and Equipment Hoarders. This ensures plenty of materials for the forge, as well as some extra mana and items when clearing infestations from the map. With form traits, Desert Adaptation is the most important for this build. Poisonous and Strong are recommendations which play well with all of your roster. Let's look into the tomes. At tier 1, we start with Roots. The Entwined Thrall is your early game summon, and can evolve into a shield unit at higher ranks, letting it benefit from all of your melee enchantments. On that note, you'll want Blight Blades and Poison Arrows. Healing Roots is a pretty valuable early game spell to help you endure initial fights without needing too much downtime between them. Next, Tome of Enchantment. Sundering Blades, Purging Arrows, and Spell-Tempered Shields are the priorities here. I don't recommend the Copper Golem summon. You already have a summon from the previous tome, and this one has no synergies whatsoever with the rest of your faction. At Tier 2, we start with Tome of the Sandstalkers. Scorpion Venom Blades, Desertification, and Dunestalkers are the priority researches. Sandstorm can be somewhat useful, but doesn't do anything specific for the faction. The Sand Scorpion summon is more helpful, but you can also get them through Call Greater Animal later on. Next we have Tome of Glades. To help the growth strategy, you'll want Create Forest. As I've said earlier, it stacks with the other terraforming that you'll do, but it needs to be cast after Desertification. Aside from it, get Leaf Skin and Aspect of the Root. The Glade Runner can be a good ranged unit to have in your roster, but to me it has a similar enough performance to the Strider, which has a better utility skill in my opinion. You could go for the Entwined Protector summon, but I find it better to get them from promoted Entwined Thralls, which are much cheaper to summon. At Tier 3, first get Tome of Transmutation. Even with nomads being very good at acquiring magic materials, along the way you're likely to run into gaps, being short of one magic material from a collection or needing just one more to forge a specific effect. That's where Transmutation Circle comes in. Even though you won't have the ability to exploit them like normal magic materials, they make for versatile fillers that help you get exactly what you want. That aside, in this tome you'll want Steel Skin and Adaptive Armor. You could go for the Transmutator, but they won't have much in the way of buffs from this build, aside from what they get as form units. Next, we have Tome of Vigor. The must-have research is Supergrowth, and I would argue that Totem of the Wild is just as interesting thanks to being a combat summon that keeps giving you expendable animal units. If you're going to field Sand Scorpions, as they are better shield units than others you'll have access to, Empowered Beasts is a must. Lastly, Call Greater Animal will be your versatile summon spell, and the alternative means to get yourself Sand Scorpions if you did not research their spell before. As I've said in an earlier section, it's worth noting that you can also get a Tier 4 shock unit with the spell, the Sandworm. At Tier 4, Tome of Paradise is here to give your cities a mean to convert part of its exceptional food income into mana, thanks to Garden of Bliss. It won't get the benefits it has from adjacent grasslands, but it isn't such a great loss compared to the ridiculous output of your sand tiles. Another shame in this tome is the fact that it has 3 sustained spells that clash with the desert and nomad playstyle. I would avoid researching Blessing of Paradise, Fortress of Vines, and Enchanting Bloom. The last of these 3 in particular can undo the entire desert strategy and should be avoided at all costs. What's left in this tome worth researching is Gaia's Chosen, Exhilarating Pollen, and Nature's Bounty. Next we have Tome of the Crucible. From here we want Meteor Projectiles, plain and simple. Pyroclastic Eruption may be worth considering as a means of pillaging cities faster so that you can annex them with your nomad cities, but I would consider it optional, like the rest of the tome. If you're playing on a map with oceans or at least some coastline, you may otherwise want to consider the Tome of the Stormborn instead of Crucible, as you'll get a major transformation out of it and a few extra benefits that let you get something out of the water tiles. If you do choose Stormborn, avoid researching Gaia's Chosen on the previous tome. At Tier 5, regardless of your prior tome, get Goddess of Nature. Both the major transformation in Paradise and Stormborn benefit from Force of Nature, which is the capstone of this whole build, benefiting both your form units and any animals you might be running with. That said, Gaia's Chosen has a slightly better synergy, since Mass Rejuvenation affects both animals and plants. And that's the build. It tries to mix two ideas into something more coherent, and I think it does a pretty decent job at that. You get both the power to make any item you may want, and a pretty decent army that has cities that grow and let you claim a lot of territory, as well as any magic materials that you may need. I'd also like to take a moment to thank all of you for your support. I'm glad that I've hit the 1,000 subscribers milestone, and I'm very grateful for those of you that find my videos worth your time. That's all I have for you today, but there's always more to come. I hope you're having a good day, and see you in the next one.